Truth is simple, while ignorance is very complicated. We began this journey with hip-hop being an American culture created by us, the children of the 1960s civil rights movement. Truth, love, and courage is our spiritual triad that one seeks for one's own self in the world around. We are this self-aware universe. You're listening to the first broadcast of the Daddy Volo Chronicles, home of the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that the 5%ers have taught me as the personification of man, woman, and children, building freedom, justice, and equality for our people. In order for all to achieve compassion, peace, and happiness, this is hip-hop culture. So where do we begin? And our son turned 11 not too long ago. And we watched Lady and the Tramp when he was maybe 9. But he wasn't really into, classical kind of movies, and, it's hard to get these, whatever generation they are now, Gen Z or, millennials. It's hard to get them to watch the classics that we, Gen X's and before us actually watch. So he suggested that we take it back. He said, yeah, let's take it back. Let's go back to see what Disney was really about together. I think he's ready now. So he suggested, I was suggesting Pinocchio. But he decided, let's go start at the beginning. We watched Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs together. And the result to that was actually to read Brothers Grimm, the original Snow White story. Now, we talking some real kind of dark children, and you have to figure that these are books that Walt Disney read when he was a teenager or younger than that, and influenced him to make renditions of their movies, movies of the books. So we reading Snow White together, and it's certain things that you realize that we're talking about, like witchcraft. You see, Snow White's mother had dropped three drops of blood, and she dropped 3 drops of blood in the warm, in the snow. Bear with, remember, and I don't want to tell too much of the story. I'm trying to freestyle this a little bit for you. So she dropped 3. She working, and she dropped 3, drops of blood in this white snow, and it's what she incarnated. Now she dies right after that, and then that's when her husband King remarries, and he married with the wicked queen, or whatever. This is the stepmother. The step calling her wicked. Because wicked. One point when she, if you fast forward a little bit, she goes mirror, mirror on the wall. She goes mirror, mirror. She actually, the part in the movie that Walt wrote, she took the heart that she thought was snow. She actually ate it. That part when my son read it, he wasn't really aware that. You read that, right? He said, yeah, she ate the. He wasn't paying any mind to morality about eating another person's heart. And I had to really help him think about it. Like, don't think about it. She ate the heart, thinking it was Snow White's heart. And he was like, yeah, that's wicked. Yes, she's that wicked. Yes, she's that wicked witch. So, Snow White's mother, who was a witch, but she was a good witch. She dropped this, blood into the snow, 3 drops of blood into the snow. the stepmother step in, and stepmother about dropping, poison and trying to kill Snow White, the mother of the, and at that point they don't even mention the king anymore. So and of course in the Walt Disney book they stopped mentioning the king. So the story is about, technically, it's about 3 witches. We're going to start relating it to of a new, like, 3 wicked witches and so many books and things that, you know what I mean? Turn it to say manhood is manhood. Clint Eastwood and the movie of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Bad and the Ugly. White is trying to be more of the good, the bad, and the beautiful. So I reiterate, in Shakespearean times, it was considered of classical mythology. Hence, in masculine achievement, it is brotherhood, manhood, and fatherhood. So with Clint Eastwood's classic Western movie, that translated to, what should I say, the fates are the good, the bad, and the ugly. Hence, in feminine achievement, it is sisterhood, womanhood, and motherhood. But with Walt Disney's classic interpretation of the Brothers Grimm classic novels, or should I say poems, it is the good, the bad, and the beautiful. And as I sit here and I look at my notes, right, I have the 3 fates of classical mythology, and I might have to do this episodical. I might have to let me sum it up real quick, and I have to do a second episode of this, because this is too much information to really squeeze into one video. Because you have Black Lives Matter coming up next, right? We're talking about 3 fates or witches or wizards, or you got Patrice Coolers and Alicia Garcia and Opal Tometi. I don't know if I can pronounce their name from going off the top of my tongue. With the Black Lives Matter movement, you had Trayvon Martin. What they, that's how they kind of started their movement, they claim. And they have history, and we all know what the story. But what was kind of travesty about that was because George Zimmerman, that he said that Trayvon was whipping his ass. And, excuse my French, but that's how he's like, he feared for his life, So that aspect of the story is kind of erased by, these 3 women, like they kind of. Talking about Trayvon being his right to defend himself was we treated it like he was a little kid. He was a 17-year-old. He was 5'11", almost, and I'm sure he was bigger than. I mean, that's the aspect that a lot of people debate. But that transformation from brotherhood to manhood is where these 3 LGBT, these alphabets, came in and changed story, or because they kind of stepped off of George Floyd, because the fellas kind of mocked George Floyd when that story came out. So like some people said he called for his mama. And he's a big man, he was getting wrestled, and but they took 3 cops to kind of wrestling down, and that aspect of his manhood was in question. Like, it's all in question. Well, even with Zimmerman, with George Zimmerman, not Zimmerman. Zimmerman's a little punk. We will admit that. That's why we will admit that. You know what I mean? But it's like, we left Trayvon, and then they Black Lives Matter George, but then the 3 George, but the founders of it, they kind of disappeared, right? That's right. That's when Al Sharpton and Jesse Jesse was retired, but Jesse was retired. And, you know what I mean? They all want to step in for the Democrats, like, you know, this and even Trump was, gave the eulogy at his funeral. But even dealing with all that, it's like, now y'all got another martyr. Like, here's George Floyd, y'all martyr or whatever. Like, it all stemmed from the first three witches, Patrice, Alicia, and Oprah, right? So they can't keep pulling the same thing over and over again with these three witches. So they retired and Patrice is in hiding, but they done made millions and millions of dollars and living that lifestyle of having a wife and a baby daddy. You know what I mean? So she's living her life, and I ain't hating on that. She made that cash. She made that cash. You were supposed to be the leader of that revolution, and now you option, and now you hot. Whatever, do what you do. But when we talking about three faces, so now they can't use them anymore because they made them, but they can't keep pulling the same three leses out, but you can kind of oppress the people from saying leses and stuff. So how you do it? You come out with Wakanda Forever. That way you use it to fictional characters, right? So now you got Suri and the Nakia and the Maya and the Ramonda. You got three of them, or even Koye, right? Like right? 3-4 women, and they giving praise to a true life person, playing a role of, it's not to hate on, but yeah, it is like his life is supposed to be separate from what the character is supposed to be. See, T'Challa's supposed to be the king that marries one of these queens. Man on either the Suri and the Kia, or or Koye, or or Koye, or but I'm not in my life. See, that's what I'm gonna it's like a lot of story to tell and how they do this. They like to put three witches. You know what I mean? And even me saying witches is like, there you go. You can be a good, you can be a bad. You know what I mean? You can be a beautiful witch, but since it rhymes with him, right? Now it's like, he's being derogatory. Not talking about the mystical aspect of whether she's good or evil, or even beautiful, right? So there's a lot to uncover. There's a lot that's where we get to Britney, and Glory, right? The Grainer. Witches, I like to say, right? That people like to say. I'm like, nah. I'm just letting y'all know, see how they doing now. This political, get her free from Russia, right? I mean, I voted for Biden. Hey, get me out. Now you see Biden's response, like, well, I can't help you, witch. See, but what do they represent? They represent the three witches. Who? And the three witches. What man is they coming? King? Are they coming to sacrifice like and George and Trayvon? Who they coming? They're coming after King LeBron James. See how they changed the game? See how much money LeBron makes more than them? He makes more than they whole league. So we got to come after LeBron James now. We're going to use these three dysfunctional grinders, witches. We'll get more into their story and how Britney, Sherelle, and Glory came to be. But but that's not really. I'm not into that gossip. I'm just saying, notice the three fates of, this is classical mythology that they used to tell us was paganism, and I'm not. There's a lot more to decipher, and I want to, I keep it. I'm just glancing over my notes, and it's like it's too much to really do at this time. But I just want y'all to this is what they're doing, and share it as manhood, share it as manhood, share it as manhood. If I talk about witches, I gotta talk about witches. The bad, and can't call them ugly. You gotta call them beautiful, right? You gotta call them beautiful. But beauty is in vain, right? Right? Beauty can be in vain. So I'm gonna leave it on that note. This episode. I hope you like the mix. And kind of know where I'm going. Like, I want y'all to do your own little study. And the witches of Eastwick and the witches and the Wizard of Oz, the witches. You know what I'm saying? We talking about the mystical powers You know what I mean? And how we can't even rhyme it with the beat, or rhyme it with the, you know what I'm saying? Because then there'd be hates, man. Because then there'd be, you know what I'm saying? Because then there'd be hates. Word. He hates, man. Because then there'd be hates, man. Because see how they see how my son see how my son see how y'all playing games. See, this is what y'all doing, right? Y'all want us to put trans women, men, whatever, at the forefront of the LGBT, right? And I can't even do the letters anymore. Like being flagged, being a hater, misogynistic, being a hater, being misogynistic, afraid, when I'm all about that truth, love, and courage. That's what hip hop is about. Seeking truth, love, and courage from one's own self and the world around. Because that's real hip hop. An American culture created by us, the children of the 1960 Civil Rights Movement. I'd rather talk about Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, aka Kwame Ture. That's that real hip hop right there. But we'll be back. I'm gonna do another episode soon, and keep going over the 3 fates of classical mythology. Stay tuned. 1. God, that is. The truth is simple, while ignorance is very complicated.